Bill and Helen both had a very impressive capacity to connect with people of all ages and even with young people. And I think that's partly because they were so broad-minded and non-judgmental in their approach, but also both of them had very lively senses of humor, and they could pick up on funny little quirks in situations, which I think especially young people found it endearing and made them both more approachable.
William G. Milliken, Michigan's longest-serving governor, was known for his environmental stewardship and civility in politics. During his tenure in office, from 1969 until 1983, Milliken lent critical support for Michigan's beverage container deposit law, expanded state funding for recreation and parks programs in Detroit, and signed the state's landmark Environmental Protection Act, as well as laws to protect sand dunes, control hazardous waste, and promote recycling. Milliken passed away in October 2019 in his native and beloved Traverse City. He was preceded by his wife Helen, herself a champion of environmental stewardship and the women's rights movement. A memorial service in celebration of Governor Milliken will be held on August 6 at the Interlochen Center for the Arts. In anticipation of the event, Flow is publishing a series of short video interviews with those who knew the governor and Helen well. Look for those videos in the coming days.
I'm Terrie Taylor, Traverse City native and fortunate friend of both Bill and Helen Milliken. The Millikens were family friends of my folks. So they were, my mom and Helen were political co-conspirators in moderate Republican causes, and the couples gathered with other couples for New Year's Eves, bridge games, etc. My mom and Helen would take a trip every year over to a wilderness area that was in my mom's family on Lake Huron. So they had this North Point summit every year, a group of women who would gather, hike. This cottage was not electrified, so they cooked their own food, so food over gas, and they debated issues of the day. I was inculcated early on with a love of the woods because these women would gather and take long hikes along the Lake Huron shoreline. They also made one foray up to Isle Royale one year and came back regaling us all with stories of their encounters with wolves and moose. He was very generous in his opinions and generous in his assessments of others and their motives. There was one really funny story. Lots of candidates would come to the Millikens, come to have tea or coffee, sort of make an obligatory visit to him, hoping, I think, for his endorsement or his blessing or whatever on their candidacy. And there was one candidate, and I'm not going to name names, who was politically quite different from the Millikens, and they were characteristically generous, gracious, polite in their living room. But then, as this person was leaving, the driver drove up, and they were standing on the curb at the Millikens' house. And just before the candidate got into his car, the sprinkler system came on and completely drenched the guy. And Helen was in the back just laughing at this, curious juxtaposition of circumstances. I think it's a many-faceted legacy. Obviously, there's the conservation component of it, and that's what many of us up here treasure. But I also think it is the civility, the generosity, and both of their graciousness, which permeated all of their interactions. Governor Milliken was legendary for his lack of prowess in the kitchen. So Helen cooked every meal for him, and if not Helen, then members of the governor's staff. And there was one point in time, and I don't know where she was, but he was home alone on Peninsula Drive, and he called us for directions on how to cook pasta, how to cook spaghetti. And so we were telling him, just cook it, boil it for about 10 minutes, throw it up on the wall and see if it sticks. What? Throw it up on the wall and see if it sticks. So I don't think he's starved. Helen and I had, for many years, the tradition of going downtown together to the farmers market on Saturdays. And she was a master gardener, and so always had very informed questions to ask people about their crops and their plants and so on. But she was a very savvy shopper and could price compare between different produce departments in the grocery stores in Traverse City and what the farmers in the farmers market were offering. So I was always impressed that a woman of her means and her stature still did comparison shopping.